Well, I don't know about you guys, but it was pretty clear to me that Nintendo Direct was the end of an era, the last Nintendo Switch 1 focused Direct that we will ever see, and it did feel like Nintendo was spacing out the announcements in terms of this is what we got left for the current generation console, outside of some one-off announcements we'll get later on. That said, Metroid Prime 4 was there in a detailed trailer, ZA showed up, we got a lot to unpack with that, but the first part of this video and the first thing you're seeing in the title that also dropped this morning that I would consider to be, for people excited for next gen, bigger news, is that we now know the pre-order live date for Nintendo Switch 2, and I want to dive into that before discussing the Direct with you guys, because if you are trying to stay up to date with how to get a day one console for Nintendo Switch 2, I will have an upcoming full detailed pre-order guide how to get a day one console on the channel here. So get subscribed and turn on notifications for that, because there are some things you want to do at these retailers to make sure you're ready to go for the date that we now know to be confirmed. And also Nintendo outlined in this Direct digital games, how that works, game sharing going forward. They have a new news app. There's a lot to unpack in this video, so we'll get on the same page with all of this info. Before we do, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And I want to first hop over to Best Buy of Canada, because they updated a blog post this morning that has an entire section of news related to Nintendo Switch 2 and basically what to expect. It literally goes over the Nintendo hands-on experiences, lots of different stuff on this web page, but what we care about is the news that Nintendo Switch 2 release date and pre-orders. While Nintendo has confirmed a 2025 release window, the exact launch date and pricing remain unannounced. However, pre-orders for the Switch 2 will officially open on April 2nd at Best Buy Canada, giving you the chance to secure your Nintendo Switch 2 early. For your pre-orders open on April 2nd, 2025, be among the first to reserve at your Best Buy Canada. Pre-order your Nintendo Switch 2 here. And now this actually falls exactly in line with what we heard from a former Nintendo of America employee who worked in the marketing department, who was on the Kit and Krista podcast. Shout out to them. They were asking them questions about if retailers would know about pre-order dates and when things would go live. And literally that former Nintendo of America employee said about a week before is when retailers would start to get wind of what's going on. And so I personally believe that Best Buy Canada just decided to outline the stuff early so people have their eyes on them as a pre-order option. And I think what's going to happen at the Switch 2 Direct that we walk into next week is going to be simply, here's the Switch 2, all the features, all the software we're going to market for it, and pre-orders are available later today. So you'll want to walk into April 2nd prepared already on various different retailers if you're trying to get it online. If you do have some options locally, like an in-store GameStop where they're selling their in-store inventory as pre-orders, that might be ideal if you go physically out to that store. But we'll dive into all of that more in a more detailed separate video on the channel, either over the weekend or Monday of next week. But I want to make sure you guys are prepared for that, because we are right in the season to get ready for Switch 2 pre-orders. And now we have to talk about the Nintendo Switch Direct that was clearly, to me, in my opinion, the last Nintendo Switch focused Direct. It's very clear that Nintendo is shifting their focus to software for Switch 2. We opened up this showcase with Dragon Quest 1 and 2 HD. Very cool for Dragon Quest fans. I have not gotten into that franchise myself, so it was already kind of setting the tone, in my opinion, for this presentation when we opened it up on a third-party game, right? Now, from there, we have a lot of different announcements we could highlight. I am not going to go through them individually. This felt like a partner Direct with some first-party Nintendo announcements sprinkled in. So while there were some cool shout-outs, like the next one I would actually want to talk about is Shadow Labyrinth, because it looks like a really fun Metroidvania game, which surprisingly enough has Pac-Man as a gameplay mechanic that is attached to your character and all of that. So based off that, whatever streaming service has that secret level show, and it's literally like the game version of that thing looked hype to me. I will pick that up day one. But there were tons of different game announcements that, to be quite honest, for me, just were not even in the wheelhouse of like being worth talking about. Now, if you have a different opinion than that, that's fine, but that's how I felt about a lot of these announcements. What I do want to spend some time on, however, this is a big one, Metroid Prime 4. We did not get a release date. We also don't have Prime 2 and 3, which it's like, what the heck, Nintendo? But if this is coming out at the end of 2025, there's maybe still a chance for those to shadow drop over the summer. Maybe they don't come at all. But When it comes to Prime 4 gameplay mechanics, we saw some very cool stuff. We may do a separate deep dive video into this in more detail, but Samus has psychic abilities this time around, which is wild. Literally the highlight of new gameplay mechanics, as they were showing her scan around and traverse these beautiful, more open world zones than we've seen before. Still not like crazy wide open, but, it looked like the next installment in a Metroid Prime franchise. But Samus can actually control things that I'm assuming you're using the right analog to do for different puzzles where you move certain levers to get them in a certain position, so that way a door opens and things like that. And or there was a portion where she fires out a charge shot of the arm cannon, and you can control that with the psychic ability to hit specific enemies as it goes forward. So it looks like you'll transition into like from firing the cannon into actually controlling the beam and hitting the enemies yourself. Very cool stuff in my opinion, and I could not be more hyped for this gameplay reveal. Of course, it wasn't our first look ever at gameplay, but it was our first look at detailed gameplay and some of Samus's more exciting abilities, and not to mention it closed out with a brief look at an incredible looking suit. It reminded me a little bit of the Phazon suit, but different. So who knows, what we're going to get into in story and lore here. There was what looked to be like some kind of godlike Chozo type character that I don't know if it probably wasn't Chozo, but I have to go back through and watch that more before giving you guys a more detailed analysis on it. But Prime 4 Beyond, the marketing is in full effect. This is probably what that Kiwi Talks podcaster rumor that we were talking about was referencing in terms of it being the true unveiling of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond. I'm not necessarily as in the mindset of seeing this show up at the next Nintendo Switch 2 Direct at this point, but it still could. So there's all of that stuff is highly possible. We could get a look at this game looking better at the Switch 2 Direct, and that might actually be the perfect game as an example if Nintendo wants to talk about enhanced backwards compatibility, where you're gonna have some visual differences from Switch 1 games running on Switch 2. It also might not be the case. So coin flip on that particular one. Surprisingly, Pokemon Legends ZA was here once again. We just got the first look at gameplay for that game literally last month at Pokemon Day towards the end of February. So to see it show up here, it was a surprise, and it was actually a deep dive trailer. Like, they did 3 minutes of gameplay or so, and it looks like Pokemon Legends ZA. It looks like what we saw last time, but the big kicker to this trailer is that they actually revealed the day-night mechanic, where during the day you're hunting Pokemon through Lumio City. You're going through a bunch of different wild areas, as well as sometimes you'll encounter Pokemon on the rooftops of buildings instead of them just being only in the wild areas and stuff like that. But there's a whole nighttime mechanic where the trainers come out to battle, and that's really cool because trainer battles is something that was really missing in Legends Arceus. So I think that having a whole section of the game where it goes night and you're kind of more in danger from the trainer battle side of things is a really, really cool thing in my opinion. Like, I really do think that that's going to be a nice addition to the overall intensity feeling of Legends ZA, and it's just a cool mechanic. The game changer thing for Legends ZA for me is the fact that you can dodge attacks in real time with your Pokemon. The fact that that's even a thing at all is like literally wild. So really cool trailer, another good one that maybe needs more of a deep dive explanation, but cool nonetheless. Quick honorable mention, Tamagotchi Plaza. I'm sure some people are going to be hyped for it. Didn't do too much for me. Rhythm Heaven Groove. It's a Rhythm Heaven game. It's Nintendo, but Rhythm Heaven for me, I'm not going to pick it up. It just didn't pique my interest at all. And in fact, I think we saw that right after Legends ZA, and it was like definitely a come down point in the Direct where we were going back to some of the more simple trailers. High on Life for Nintendo Switch. This game is already out on other platforms, but it's cool to see it getting another Nintendo Switch version, and I think that this is the type of game that I'd probably want to play on the Switch 2 via backwards compatibility. But then we have to talk about, let's just talk about the rest of the games first, and there's a couple pieces of separate Nintendo news, surprisingly. Here, Saga Frontier 2 remastered from Square Enix does look very solid, and I'm sure your 2D HD 2D fans of JRPGs will be very excited for this particular game. Momentum Valley 1, 2, and 3 are all headed to the Nintendo Switch, albeit at different times. There's a new Everybody's Golf game, Hot Shots. Not really interested in that one particularly. Marvel Cosmic Invasion definitely caught my attention, because it literally looks like peak Marvel gameplay from Sega Genesis / SNES era gaming, and it's just a modern installment of that coming to Nintendo Switch. Very cool announcement, and I believe it was the end of 2025. Tamagotchi Life Living the Dream was the show closer. Now, this is a big deal because Tamagotchi, as they mentioned, Tamagotchi Life has not actually gotten a new game installment in the last 10 years. This is not up my alley of gameplay. They literally, I thought they were bringing back Me Plaza. Originally, I thought it was an Animal Crossing spinoff. That's not the case. But you know, the Miis are back in full force in this Tamagotchi Life. But Living the Dream has some Animal Crossing vibes to it for sure. And you know, it looks like it's going to be cool for Tamagotchi Life fans, just not for me. Virtual game cards. This was a whole 2+ minute segment of Nintendo actually explaining how game sharing is going to work from a digital perspective. And kids, I hate to say it, this is writings on the wall. This is the death of physical games slowly. I'm very aware that Nintendo is making this way more convenient to now share your digital games, and that is them inching closer to just basically going all digital in the future. Will the Switch 2 be the last one that supports physical games? Maybe we get to Switch 3 or whatever's after that and we get one more run of physical games. But when I tell you these companies are all building towards this all digital future, this was a big messaging point that says Nintendo's also doing that. However, this is legitimately a big quality of life enhancement for digital game owners. And considering how many games on Nintendo Switch currently are just digital only through the eShop, and that's the only way you can buy them, this is again a big win, because the long and short of it is you can essentially make a virtual game card to share with another console via local wireless connection, and they get to basically keep it for up to 2 weeks. There's some like ins and outs and details that I need to go back through and really read the document in full detail, but essentially it's like handing your game case to another player. It did sound like it's a limit of just sharing it to one other console, I think with anybody via local, but I do think that you get via the family account system, basically you get to share out whoever to whoever in your Nintendo Switch family, which makes it a lot easier if you bought a physical game on your Switch and you want to be able to give it to somebody in your Nintendo Switch online family membership. It's very easy to do that from the sounds of things, and it's going to be something that there are limitations. It's literally like one game at a time that you can share. You cannot give out your whole library or anything like that for a 2-week period to your friends, which definitely makes it different than how they were trying to present it, which is like, now it's like the same way you handed physical games to friends, you can do it with digital games, but I could hand all my physical games to friends if I wanted to. I can't do that with this virtual game card system. But nonetheless, it's a big upgrade for how Nintendo is going to handle digital game sharing. And there's a reason that this was here. It's going to be supported on the Nintendo Switch console going forward after an April software update. That's probably going to be a telling update for data miners too, because it might be getting stuff ready for how it talks to Switch 2 and stuff like that. But this will be going live in April. Virtual game cards is a thing for Nintendo Switch. Then it looks like Nintendo's trying to go after YouTubers. At least that's what it looked like to me. But no, they are doing their own in-house news app is the long and short of it. So that's another news source for me to look at and report on. And they actually said that daily they will have new Nintendo Switch 2 news updates. And this was technically the actual show closer of the event, because Miyamoto came on screen and told us about this new way that they communicate with Nintendo, communicate with their audience directly. This is another big thing we've heard Nintendo focus on in terms of the importance of their Nintendo account system, because they have so many of these registered Nintendo accounts. You can now log into this news app and get direct updates from them, from the horse's mouth. We don't always have to have a direct presentation. They did clarify they're going to continue to have direct presentations, but this might be how Nintendo really announces stuff going forward in terms of the smaller scale stuff, and then they hold directs when they have a bunch of different things to announce all at once. We might get new game announcements in this app, in addition to how they do it on other social media platforms right now, where it goes live with the trailer on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, on Instagram. Like, basically, they're still going to have, I would imagine, their same social media presence everywhere, but they're also doing an in-house news app that you can get the news straight from Nintendo, which, it's actually kind of cool just to have an additional source when we're not going to have to question about if something's accurate or not if Nintendo just updates their news app with a brand new announcement. So another source to look at going forward. Definitely overall, if you want a grade of the Direct, like outside of Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and ZA, because those were the two big ones, It was a low grade direct for me, like 4 out of 10. But Metroid Prime 4 Beyond and ZA, they elevated that quite a bit. Of course, we didn't get release dates for either one of them. We didn't get any of the big rumored, Prime 2 and 3 remastered, Zelda Wind Waker Twilight Princess, even something from F-Zero. Kirby Planet Robobot wasn't here. I'm just realizing that as we're speaking. Like, there was some missing stuff. So the Switch 1 Direct era focus directs are done, but I do think that there will still be quite a few, new announcements over the course of time to continue to support Switch. We even got one game that was marketed that was 2026. So, we're going to have that kind of stuff that continues to come out on Switch, but it's definitely going to go to Switch 2 focus, full-fledged, full force ahead from here, in my opinion. And we will be covering the Switch 2 Direct literally next week. So, we're talking 6 days. It's going to be on Wednesday, April 2nd. We're almost there. We just got back-to-back directs in this particular instance. But let me know in the comments down below what you made of today's direct. Are you excited we have the official pre-order launch date of Nintendo Switch 2? And will you be trying to secure one on April 2nd yourself? And out of all the games that were shown in the Switch 1 Focus Direct today, what was the highlight for you personally? So make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell. And with that, I've been Sunbro, you've been Nation. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.